The school was buzzing with excitement and tension at the same time. Students hurried through the hallways, carrying books and chatting about the upcoming music class. In the music room, the piano gleamed under the soft sunlight coming through the tall windows. Today was not an ordinary day. The teachers had something special in mind, and everyone felt the nervous energy in the air. In the corner of the room sat a young woman, quiet and observant. She was not the type to seek attention or speak loudly. Most of her classmates barely noticed her presence, thinking of her as just another student. But beneath her calm and modest appearance, there was a fire, a deep love for music and a secret skill that no one had truly seen. She had been practicing the piano for years in solitude, losing herself in melodies that spoke more than words ever could. The teacher clapped hands to grab attention. "Today," the teacher said with a strict voice, "each of you will attempt a very challenging piano piece. It will test your technique, your memory, and your ability to feel the music." The words hung in the air like a heavy cloud. Students exchanged nervous glances, some whispering to each other about how impossible it would be. The young woman listened quietly, feeling a familiar mix of anxiety and excitement. When the teacher looked around the room and pointed toward her, she felt a sudden rush of attention. "You will play first," the teacher said. Gasps and murmurs ran through the classroom. Some students smirked, thinking it would be impossible for her to play such a complex piece. They had no idea about the depth of her talent. She only nodded softly, not saying a word. Words were never her strength, but her music was. She approached the piano with a gentle determination. Her hands hovered over the keys, feeling the smooth texture and the coolness of the black and white surfaces. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting her mind focus on the melody that had been living in her imagination for months. Every note, every chord, was etched into her memory. Yet it was the emotion behind the music that mattered most. The first few notes were soft, almost hesitant, as if she were testing the waters. But as the music continued, her fingers moved with surprising confidence. The difficult arpeggios flowed effortlessly, and the complex rhythms that had seemed impossible earlier came alive with clarity and precision. The room, once filled with doubt and chatter, fell silent. Every ear tuned into the piano, listening to the story she was telling through sound. Some students' jaws dropped, unable to believe the skill and emotion they were witnessing. The teacher, who had expected mistakes, leaned forward, eyes wide with astonishment. The music was not just correct, it was alive. It carried a depth and richness that no one in the room had anticipated. Each crescendo and soft whisper of the keys painted pictures and emotions that words could not capture. As the piece progressed, her confidence grew, but she remained humble and focused. She did not look for approval, applause, or praise. Her only goal was to convey the music in its purest form. Every note was intentional, every pause meaningful. She allowed herself to be fully immersed in the piece, letting it flow naturally through her, guided by passion rather than expectation. When the final note echoed and faded into silence, the room stayed quiet for a moment. The impact of the performance hung in the air. Slowly, the teacher began clapping, followed by hesitant applause from some classmates. Others stared, speechless, their previous judgments shattered. For the first time, they saw her not as a quiet, unnoticed student, but as someone extraordinary, a true musician whose talent could not be ignored. She took a small, humble bow, feeling neither pride nor arrogance. Inside, however, there was a quiet satisfaction, a recognition of all the hours spent practicing alone, of the countless moments when she had doubted herself. This performance was a turning point, a silent message to the world. Her talent was real, and it was powerful. The teacher approached her after class, eyes shining with admiration. "I had no idea," the teacher admitted softly. "You are truly gifted." She smiled politely, not letting the praise overwhelm her. She knew that this was only the beginning of her journey. There were many more pieces to play, more challenges to face, and more music to share. As she packed her bag and left the room, whispers of her performance followed her. Students discussed the unexpected display of skill, and some began to rethink their assumptions about the quiet girl who had always sat in the corner. They realized that appearances could be deceiving, and that true talent often hides in plain sight, waiting for the right moment to shine. Walking down the hallway, she felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. The experience had been intense, but it had also opened a door. She was determined to continue practicing, to explore the depths of her ability, and to let the music speak for her. She understood that this was just one step in a much larger journey, one that would challenge her, inspire her, and perhaps even change the way others saw her. That evening, she sat at her piano at home, letting her fingers dance over the keys once more. The notes felt familiar, comforting, and alive. She played not for an audience, not for recognition, but for herself. Each melody was a reflection of her heart, a story that only music could tell. And as the final note lingered in the quiet room, she knew that this was only the beginning of a remarkable journey, one that would reveal her true genius to the world in time. After the performance at school, the young woman felt a strange mix of relief and nervous energy. The applause and admiration were still fresh in her mind, but she knew that this was not the time to become complacent. The teachers had seen her skill, but they had also set an example of high expectations. She felt a quiet determination to improve even further. She wanted to be ready for any challenge, for any moment where her talent might be tested again. At home, she sat at her piano and opened a notebook filled with music notes she had carefully written down over months. Each page represented hours of practice, dedication, and passion. She had always preferred learning and exploring music in private, where no one could judge her. But now, after being unexpectedly recognized, she felt a subtle shift inside her. The music that had been her secret was slowly becoming something others could see and feel. Her parents watched quietly from the doorway, noticing a newfound focus in their child. They had always known she had talent, but they had not imagined just how extraordinary it truly was. They offered gentle encouragement, suggesting she might consider joining a local music group or taking part in competitions. She listened politely, nodding, but inside she felt that these opportunities would come in their own time. She did not play for recognition. She played because the piano spoke to her in ways that words could not. At school, whispers about her performance continued to circulate. Some classmates began to look at her differently, some with admiration and others with envy. The teachers, still surprised, made small changes in class, paying closer attention to her skills and sometimes giving her more challenging pieces to play. She took these tasks seriously, not wanting to disappoint anyone, but also not wanting to let the pressure take away the joy she found in music. Every day after school, she would sit in the quiet corner of her room, practicing for hours. She focused on each note, each transition, making sure her fingers and heart worked together seamlessly. Sometimes, she would pause and replay a small section again and again until it felt just right. Her practice was not just about perfection, but about understanding the music deeply, feeling its emotions, and connecting with the story behind each piece. Her classmates began to notice her dedication. Some were curious, sneaking peeks at her practice sessions or asking questions about certain techniques. She answered softly, sharing a little of what she knew without boasting. Her humility made her talent even more impressive. Teachers, too, started to rely on her as an example for other students, pointing out how focus and persistence could lead to extraordinary results. Despite the attention, she remained grounded. She found comfort in the familiar rhythms of her daily routine, balancing schoolwork, family time, and music. On weekends, she would sometimes explore new pieces, challenging herself with compositions she had never tried before. Each piece brought new lessons, requiring patience, concentration, and creativity. She began to see music not just as notes on a page, but as a living language capable of expressing feelings she could not put into words. One afternoon, she decided to attempt a particularly difficult composition that had always intimidated her. The piece was complex, full of rapid scales, unexpected chords, and intricate rhythms. She had watched videos of professional pianists perform it and had listened to recordings countless times. Now it was her turn to try. She took a deep breath, placed her fingers on the keys, and let the music guide her. The first few measures were shaky, as her fingers tried to navigate the challenging sequences. She made small mistakes, but she did not get frustrated. Instead, she paused, replayed the section, and focused on the flow rather than the errors. Slowly, her confidence grew. The notes began to sound more harmonious, the rhythms more natural. She was not just playing the piece. She was understanding it, feeling its energy, and letting it move through her hands. As she continued, the piece transformed under her touch. What had once seemed impossible now flowed with grace and precision. She discovered new textures, subtle dynamics, and emotional depth she had not noticed before. The room was filled with music, rich and expressive, reflecting her dedication and inner world. She realized that the hours spent in solitude, the patience, and the quiet discipline had all prepared her for this moment. After finishing, she sat back and allowed the final notes to linger in the air. A sense of accomplishment washed over her, but she did not dwell on pride. Instead, she felt motivated to explore further, to take on new challenges, and to continue growing as a musician. The journey was not about proving herself to others, but about discovering the depths of her own potential. The next week at school, the teachers noticed a subtle change in her performance during lessons. She played with more confidence and fluidity, yet her humility remained intact. Some classmates approached her, asking for tips or advice, and she offered gentle guidance, encouraging them to focus on patience and consistent practice. Her influence began to spread, inspiring others to take their own music more seriously. Despite the growing attention, she remained careful to balance her studies and personal life. She knew that true growth required both discipline and reflection. She took time to analyze each piece she played, learning not just the notes but the intention behind them. Every challenge she faced, every difficult piece she attempted, became a lesson not just in music but in persistence, focus, and self-belief. As the weeks passed, she began to gain a quiet reputation as a prodigy among those who knew her. The teachers, who had once underestimated her, now looked to her for guidance and inspiration. Yet she never let the recognition change her. She continued to approach every piano session with the same care, the same love for music, and the same determination to grow. Her story began to spread outside the classroom. A local music mentor heard about her abilities and reached out, inviting her to attend workshops and explore opportunities for growth. She considered the invitation thoughtfully, recognizing that this could be a step towards something larger, a chance to share her music with a wider audience. But she also understood the importance of readiness, of developing her skill fully before stepping into the wider world. Through all of this, the young woman learned to trust herself. She learned that talent alone was not enough. Patience, perseverance, and passion were equally important. Each day at the piano became an opportunity to refine her skill, to explore the depth of her musical expression, and to prepare for whatever challenges lay ahead. By the end of the part, she had grown not just as a musician but as a person. She had faced doubt, pressure, and expectation and had emerged stronger, more confident, and more aware of her own potential. The journey was far from over, but she now understood that with dedication and heart, she could overcome any challenge and reveal her true talent to the world. The morning of the next performance arrived with a mixture of tension and anticipation. The young woman walked into the music room, feeling the weight of all the eyes that would be watching her. Today, it would not just be about playing well, it would be about showing the depth of her ability under scrutiny. Her heart beat faster than usual, but she reminded herself that nerves were just a part of the experience. She took a deep breath, letting the familiar scent of the piano and polished wood calm her. The room was already buzzing with whispers. Students exchanged quiet comments, some full of excitement and others tinged with doubt. A few had been skeptical about her talent before, but her previous performance had left them unsure of what to expect this time. The teachers sat at the back, their eyes sharp and focused, clearly interested to see whether her skill would shine again. When the teacher called her name, a hush fell over the room. She approached the piano slowly, each step deliberate. Her fingers hovered above the keys for a brief moment as she took in the surroundings. The bright sunlight streaming through the windows highlighted the polished surface of the piano, making it seem almost like a stage spotlight. She closed her eyes briefly, grounding herself and letting her mind focus entirely on the music. As she began to play, the first notes were soft, cautious, almost as if testing the room. The complexity of the piece required not just skill but focus, and every measure demanded her complete attention. She had spent countless hours practicing at home, but performing in front of others was an entirely different experience. The challenge was not just technical but emotional. She needed to convey the story behind each note and each phrase. Gradually, her confidence grew. Her hands moved with precision, each chord resonating with clarity. The piece, once intimidating, now seemed to flow naturally through her fingers. She adjusted her tempo with subtle changes, adding dynamics that reflected the emotions hidden within the music. The room that had been filled with whispers and skepticism now seemed to quiet itself, fully absorbed by the sound she created. Her classmates began to notice details in her performance they had never seen before. The gentle rise and fall of her melodies, the way her hands danced across the keys, and the emotional depth behind every note captured their attention. Even the teachers, who had high expectations, were visibly impressed. Their eyes widened, and a few exchanged nods of acknowledgement, recognizing the talent and dedication that had gone into this performance. The young woman did not look at her audience. Her focus remained entirely on the piano, on the music, and on the story she wanted to tell. Each measure was carefully thought out, yet it also carried an instinctive flow that came from years of practice and deep understanding of her instrument. She could feel the rhythm of the piece in her chest and the movement of the keys beneath her fingers, creating a connection between her heart and the piano. As she continued, the piece grew more complex, and the audience could sense the tension building in the music. She navigated rapid scales, intricate chords, and sudden changes in tempo with ease. The performance was not just technically perfect. It was alive with emotion. The highs soared and the lows resonated with a quiet intensity that seemed to reach everyone in the room. She could feel the attention of her listeners, but she did not let it distract her. Instead, it pushed her to express the music even more fully. In one particularly challenging section, she had to combine speed, accuracy, and emotion all at once. For a moment, she felt her heart race, but her fingers moved instinctively, guided by countless hours of practice. The notes seemed to take on a life of their own, flowing seamlessly despite the complexity. It was a moment where preparation and instinct met perfectly, creating something remarkable that even she could feel but could not fully control. When she reached the final measures, the music softened into gentle, lingering notes. The energy in the room shifted as the last chord resonated and faded. Silence followed, heavy and full of awe. The students stared, unable to find words. The teachers leaned forward, visibly moved and impressed by the young woman's ability to transform a challenging piece into an emotional and powerful performance. Slowly, the room erupted in applause. It started quietly, a few tentative claps, and then grew into a full, genuine expression of admiration. Some classmates whispered to each other, amazed at what they had just witnessed. Others had tears in their eyes, touched by the depth of expression. The teachers, who had once doubted, now recognized not only her skill but also the dedication, discipline, and passion that had fueled her growth. She rose from the piano, bowing her head slightly in a modest acknowledgement of the appreciation. Her heart was still racing, but it was a different kind of energy now, a feeling of satisfaction and quiet pride. She had faced the pressure, the eyes, and the expectations, and she had not only met them but had elevated the performance into something unforgettable. The applause continued as she stepped back, letting the music linger in everyone's memory. After class, some students approached her, hesitant at first, then more openly, asking questions about her practice and technique. She responded with gentle, thoughtful answers, careful not to boast. She explained that dedication, patience, and love for the music were more important than talent alone. Her humility made her even more admirable to those around her. The teachers offered encouraging words, suggesting she consider further opportunities to grow her skills and explore her potential. Despite the praise, she remained grounded. She knew that music was an ongoing journey, one that required constant learning and exploration. She returned home that evening and sat at her piano, not to perform for others, but to continue her personal growth. She revisited sections of the piece she had played, refining and exploring new interpretations. Each session brought a deeper understanding of the music and of herself. The young woman also began to notice subtle changes in her peers. Some were inspired to work harder on their own pieces, motivated by her example. Others were curious, eager to learn more about her approach to practice and performance. She became a quiet source of influence, showing that talent combined with patience and focus could lead to remarkable results. In her private moments, she reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She remembered the hours spent practicing alone, the times she had doubted herself, and the small victories that had led to this performance. She understood that every challenge she faced, every difficult piece she attempted, was shaping her into a musician who could handle anything with grace and confidence. As the evening wore on, she closed her eyes and let her hands rest on the keys, feeling the connection between herself and the piano. The music was not just something she played. It was a part of her, an expression of her thoughts, emotions, and dedication. She understood that the performances at school were milestones, but the real journey was in the quiet practice, the attention to detail, and the love for the art itself. She realized that she had grown not only in skill but in character. Facing the expectations and skepticism of others had taught her resilience, focus, and humility. The experience had reinforced her understanding that talent alone was not enough. It was the combination of practice, patience, and passion that made her music extraordinary. With each day and each piece she learned, she became more confident and more aware of her own potential. By the end of the part, she was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. The recognition and applause had given her a glimpse of what was possible, but she knew that there were greater heights to reach. Her journey was far from over, and the next performance, the next piece, and the next opportunity would test her even further. But now she had the confidence, the skill, and the inner strength to face whatever came next, guided always by the music that had become a part of her very being. The days following the last performance were filled with a mix of excitement and curiosity at school. Students whispered in hallways, discussing the unexpected brilliance they had witnessed. Teachers, who had once underestimated the quiet young woman, began to notice her not just as a student, but as a remarkable talent. There was a new energy in the music room, a sense that something extraordinary was unfolding. One afternoon, the teacher announced that there would be a special performance in front of a small audience of teachers, students, and a few invited guests. The challenge this time was even greater, with a complex piece that demanded technical mastery, emotional depth, and endurance. Some students shivered at the thought, while others tried to prepare, aware that the expectations were higher than ever. The young woman listened quietly, absorbing the news without showing her emotions outwardly. As the day of the performance arrived, the room was filled with anticipation. Everyone was eager to see if she could once again rise to the occasion. The young woman sat at the piano, her posture calm and focused. Her fingers hovered above the keys, and for a brief moment, the world seemed to fade away. She was alone with the music, and the rest of the room became secondary. Her heart beat steadily, not with fear, but with readiness. She began to play. The first notes were soft and deliberate, creating a sense of calm before the storm. As she moved through the opening measures, it became clear that she had studied every detail of the piece. Her hands moved with precision and elegance, navigating the complex chords and rapid sequences with ease. The piece demanded both technical skill and emotional expression, and she delivered both in perfect balance. The audience was captivated. Teachers leaned forward, their eyes wide with amazement. Students watched in awe, unable to look away from the display of talent unfolding before them. Every note she played seemed to carry a story, a depth of feeling that went far beyond the sheet music. The room, once filled with chatter and doubt, was now completely silent, wrapped in the sound of the piano. As she continued, the piece grew more intense. Fast passages and intricate harmonies tested her endurance, but she remained steady and focused. Her fingers flew across the keys, each movement deliberate, each sound clear and expressive. The dynamics shifted seamlessly, from soft, tender moments to powerful, soaring crescendos. The music seemed to fill the room, wrapping around every listener, pulling them into her world. For the first time, some students realized that talent could be hidden in plain sight. The young woman, who had always been quiet and reserved, had revealed a level of skill that no one had expected. The contrast between her modest demeanor and the breathtaking performance only added to the impact. Teachers exchanged glances, recognizing that they had witnessed something rare and extraordinary. The emotional depth of her playing became even more apparent in the middle section of the piece. The notes flowed like a conversation, sometimes soft and reflective, sometimes urgent and passionate. She seemed to communicate directly with the audience, telling a story through sound alone. Some listeners felt tears prick at their eyes, moved by the raw emotion conveyed with such skill and subtlety. Every measure showed not just technical mastery but also a profound understanding of music. She anticipated each change, each chord, each pause, with a sense of awareness that only comes from years of deep study and connection with the instrument. Her fingers danced lightly across the keys, yet the sound was full and resonant, each note clear and purposeful. The climax of the piece was breathtaking. Rapid sequences, bold chords, and intricate rhythms combined to create a moment of intense energy. She navigated it flawlessly, her concentration absolute. The audience held its breath, unable to blink, as the music soared. She was in complete control, yet it seemed effortless, natural, as if the piano itself had become an extension of her mind and heart. As the final notes approached, she softened her touch, bringing the piece to a gentle, lingering conclusion. The last chord resonated through the room, leaving a quiet, profound silence in its wake. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. The audience erupted into applause, some standing, some clapping with tears in their eyes. The teachers were visibly moved, exchanging impressed glances and shaking their heads in disbelief. The young woman's performance had exceeded all expectations. She rose slowly from the piano, bowing her head slightly, acknowledging the appreciation without showing arrogance. Inside, however, there was a quiet sense of triumph. She had not only met the challenge but had surpassed it, revealing a depth of talent and emotional intelligence that had taken years to cultivate. She understood that the recognition was not the goal. The real reward was in the expression of the music itself. After the performance, some teachers approached her individually, praising her technique, emotional depth, and ability to convey the story behind the music. They suggested opportunities for competitions, advanced workshops, and mentorships that could help her develop her talent further. She listened with humility, absorbing the information without letting it overwhelm her. She knew that the path ahead would require continued dedication and effort. Her classmates also approached her, their expressions a mixture of admiration, curiosity, and newfound respect. Some asked questions about her practice routines, her approach to learning complex pieces, and how she managed to perform under pressure. She answered gently, offering insights while emphasizing the importance of patience, focus, and consistent effort. Her humility and willingness to share inspired others to improve their own skills. Back at home, she reflected on the experience. The performance had been a turning point, not only in how others perceived her but also in how she saw herself. She had faced a challenging piece, navigated pressure, and conveyed deep emotion, all while remaining true to her own approach and love for music. The journey was far from over, but this moment solidified her confidence and determination. She resumed her practice with renewed focus, exploring new pieces, experimenting with interpretations, and continuing to refine her technique. Each session was a step toward growth, a chance to deepen her connection with the piano and the music. She was aware that challenges would continue, and that each opportunity to perform was a chance to learn and improve. The young woman's story began to quietly spread beyond the school. Local musicians and mentors heard about her performances, intrigued by the reports of a student with exceptional talent and emotional depth. Invitations for workshops, private lessons, and small recitals began to arrive. She considered each opportunity thoughtfully, recognizing that each could help her develop further, but she remained focused on her personal growth rather than seeking fame. Throughout it all, she maintained a balance between school, personal life, and music. She understood that sustaining her talent required not just practice but also mental and emotional well-being. She took breaks when needed, reflected on her progress, and approached each new challenge with patience and focus. Her journey was not just about mastering pieces, but about growing as a musician and as a person. By the end of this part, she had established herself as a true prodigy in the eyes of her teachers and classmates. Her skill, dedication, and humility had transformed perceptions and inspired those around her. She understood that her talent was a gift, but it was the hard work, practice, and emotional connection with music that made it extraordinary. The young woman was ready for whatever challenges lay ahead, confident that with patience, focus, and heart, she could continue to reach new heights and share her music with the world. The days following the last performance were filled with a quiet excitement at school. Students talked in hushed tones about the young woman's extraordinary talent, while teachers reflected on the depth of skill and emotion she had displayed. What had begun as simple curiosity had now grown into genuine admiration. She had transformed from a quiet, unnoticed student into someone who commanded respect, not through words or attention, but through the sheer power of her music. One morning, the teacher approached her with a gentle smile. "We would like you to play at a special event," the teacher said, explaining that the school had invited parents, staff, and local community members to witness a showcase of student talent. The piece she was asked to perform was challenging, combining technical complexity with deep emotional expression. While some students felt anxious at the thought of performing in front of a larger audience, she accepted with calm determination. The opportunity was not about showing off. It was about expressing herself fully through music. In the days leading up to the event, she practiced with dedication. Each session was focused and deliberate, refining each note, each chord, and each dynamic. She experimented with phrasing, timing, and expression, exploring the nuances that would make the performance truly moving. She also revisited previous pieces, analyzing what had worked well and what could be improved. Her attention to detail reflected her deep connection to the music, as well as her desire to convey emotion authentically. When the day of the showcase arrived, the room was filled with anticipation. Parents, teachers, and students filled the chairs, all eager to see the young woman perform. There was a sense of expectation, mixed with curiosity, as whispers of her previous performances had already spread. She approached the piano with quiet focus, her posture relaxed but alert. Her fingers hovered above the keys, and she took a deep breath, centering herself before beginning. The first notes were gentle, soft, and deliberate. The music began to flow naturally, each phrase building on the last, drawing the listeners in. She navigated complex sequences and rapid passages with precision and grace, allowing the technical mastery to support the emotional impact rather than overshadow it. Her hands moved with confidence, each chord resonating clearly, each melody carrying a sense of purpose and feeling. As she played, the audience became fully immersed in the performance. Teachers watched with admiration, recognizing the years of practice, discipline, and love for music that had led to this moment. Parents leaned forward, captivated by the expressive depth and clarity of each note. Students exchanged looks of awe, many realizing that talent could manifest in ways they had never imagined. The quiet young woman in their midst had revealed a level of skill and artistry that left everyone speechless. The middle section of the piece demanded both technical prowess and emotional engagement. She executed rapid scales, intricate rhythms, and sudden shifts in dynamics with ease, yet never lost the expressive quality that made the performance compelling. Each note, each pause, carried intention, conveying a story that words could not capture. The music became a dialogue between the performer and the audience, a shared experience that connected everyone in the room. At one point, a particularly dramatic chord progression rose to a powerful climax. The audience felt the tension and release, the emotional journey that had been carefully crafted and passionately expressed. The young woman's control over the music was evident, yet the performance never felt mechanical or forced. Instead, it was alive, organic, and deeply moving. Some listeners felt tears welling up, touched by the beauty and honesty of the expression. As the piece moved toward its conclusion, she softened her touch, allowing the final notes to linger in the air. The room was enveloped in silence, the impact of the performance resonating deeply. When the last chord faded, the audience erupted into applause, some standing, some clapping with genuine admiration. The young woman rose from the piano, bowing gracefully, her calm demeanor belying the intensity of the performance she had just delivered. After the showcase, teachers approached her, offering words of praise and encouragement. They marveled at her ability to convey emotion, master technique, and perform under pressure. They suggested opportunities for competitions, advanced lessons, and mentorship with accomplished musicians who could help her further develop her talent. She listened with humility, absorbing the advice while remaining focused on her personal growth rather than seeking recognition. Her classmates, too, were deeply impressed. Some approached her with questions about her practice routines, her approach to learning challenging pieces, and how she managed performance anxiety. She answered gently, emphasizing the importance of patience, persistence, and love for the music itself. Her humility and willingness to share inspired others to take their own practice more seriously, fostering a sense of respect and admiration among her peers. The young woman also reflected on her journey privately. She understood that each performance, each challenge, was a step toward growth. Her skill was not merely a gift. It was the result of dedication, focus, and countless hours of practice. She recognized that true mastery required both technical ability and emotional intelligence, the capacity to communicate through music with authenticity and depth. At home, she returned to her piano, exploring new pieces and refining existing ones. She experimented with different interpretations, seeking to convey the essence of each composition fully. Each session strengthened her confidence, deepened her understanding of music, and reinforced her connection to the instrument. The piano had become more than a tool. It was an extension of her emotions and thoughts, a way to express herself fully and authentically. As her reputation began to grow, she received invitations to participate in local music workshops and recitals. Each opportunity offered a chance to expand her skills, connect with other musicians, and gain exposure to new experiences. She approached these opportunities thoughtfully, balancing the desire for growth with the need to maintain focus and dedication. She understood that success was not simply about recognition but about continual development and authentic expression. Through all of this, she remained grounded. She maintained her routine, balancing schoolwork, family life, and music practice. She took time to reflect on her progress, learning from mistakes, and celebrating small achievements. Her journey was one of steady growth, driven by passion and discipline rather than the desire for fame or approval. By the end of this part, the young woman had fully established herself as a prodigy in the eyes of teachers, classmates, and the wider school community. Her talent, combined with humility, dedication, and emotional depth, had transformed perceptions and inspired those around her. She had faced expectations, pressure, and scrutiny, and emerged not only successful but more confident, focused, and aware of her own potential. She knew that the journey was far from over. Greater challenges, more complex pieces, and new opportunities awaited her. Yet she was ready, guided by the music that had become a central part of her life. Each note she played was a reflection of her growth, dedication, and love for the art. She understood that her music could touch others, inspire them, and reveal a truth about herself that words alone could never convey. And so, she continued, prepared for the next step in a journey that promised both challenge and profound fulfillment. The young woman felt a mixture of excitement and quiet determination as she walked into the music room that morning. Word of her talent had spread, and today she would face another opportunity. One that could take her skill beyond the school walls. Local musicians, mentors, and even community members had expressed interest in hearing her play. She knew that this was a step toward something bigger, but she approached it with her usual calm focus. The goal was not to impress, but to share the music she loved. As she approached the piano, the room seemed charged with anticipation. The guests were seated, some whispering quietly, others watching her with curiosity. She felt their eyes on her, but instead of feeling pressure, she let it remind her why she played music: to communicate, to express, and to connect. She took a deep breath, placed her fingers lightly on the keys, and allowed herself to become fully immersed in the piece she had chosen. The opening notes were gentle, flowing naturally from her fingertips. The composition was demanding, requiring both technical skill and emotional sensitivity. Her hands moved with precision, each chord resonating clearly, each melody filled with meaning. She navigated rapid scales, complex transitions, and subtle dynamics with ease, yet never lost the expressive depth that made her playing so compelling. It was as if the piano had become an extension of her thoughts and emotions, translating what she felt directly to those listening. The audience was captivated. Some leaned forward, listening intently, while others closed their eyes, letting the music wash over them. Teachers, who had once been skeptical, watched with admiration. They recognized not just her technical skill, but the way she breathed life into each note. Even those who had doubted her now understood that her talent was extraordinary, built on years of quiet dedication and love for the art. As the piece progressed, the young woman explored the emotional range of the music. There were soft, reflective passages that spoke of introspection and calm, followed by powerful, soaring sections that conveyed passion and intensity. Each measure was intentional, each note a reflection of the story she wanted to tell. The audience felt the ebb and flow of the music, as if they were traveling alongside her, experiencing the emotions she conveyed without words. Midway through the piece, a particularly challenging section required rapid sequences and intricate harmonies. Her fingers moved with fluidity and confidence, handling the complexity with a balance of precision and expressiveness. The audience was mesmerized, realizing that what they were witnessing was not just skill, but artistry. The young woman had the ability to make even the most difficult passages seem effortless, and the depth of emotion she communicated elevated the performance to something unforgettable. Teachers whispered to each other, noting her growth and dedication. They had watched her evolve from a quiet, modest student to a confident and expressive musician. Her humility had never wavered, yet her ability to convey the soul of the music had deepened. The combination of technical mastery and emotional intelligence made her performances not only impressive but inspiring. As the piece neared its conclusion, she softened the touch of her fingers, allowing the final chords to linger in the air. Silence filled the room, a quiet testament to the power of the music she had created. The audience sat in awe, absorbing the lingering resonance of the performance. Then, slowly, applause began, building into a wave of genuine admiration. Teachers, students, and guests alike recognized the magnitude of her talent and dedication. After the performance, several mentors and local musicians approached her, expressing interest in helping her develop further. They offered guidance, lessons, and opportunities to perform at local events and workshops. She listened carefully, taking in their suggestions while remaining grounded. She knew that growth required focus, practice, and patience, and that opportunities were most meaningful when approached with preparation and dedication. Her classmates were inspired as well. Many approached her to ask questions about her practice routine, her approach to mastering difficult pieces, and how she maintained composure during performances. She answered with kindness, emphasizing the importance of consistent practice, attention to detail, and playing from the heart. Her humility and willingness to share knowledge encouraged others to pursue their own musical development with renewed determination. At home that evening, she reflected on her journey. The experiences at school and in the community had shown her that talent was not only about ability, but also about persistence, focus, and the willingness to grow. Each challenge she faced had been a step forward, building her confidence and expanding her understanding of music. She realized that her path as a musician was not about recognition or applause, but about expressing herself authentically and inspiring others along the way. She returned to her piano, exploring new compositions and revisiting old favorites. She experimented with phrasing, dynamics, and emotional expression, striving to uncover new depths in each piece. Practice became both a discipline and a joy, an opportunity to refine her skill while connecting with the music on a personal level. She understood that the journey was ongoing, with each performance and each practice session offering lessons and growth. As weeks passed, she gained recognition not just locally, but within broader musical circles. Invitations to workshops, recitals, and mentorships arrived, each providing an opportunity to expand her skills and share her music with new audiences. She approached these opportunities thoughtfully, balancing the desire for growth with the need to maintain her focus and dedication. She remained committed to her own development, knowing that talent alone was never enough without effort and passion. The young woman's story became an inspiration to those around her. Teachers, peers, and community members marveled at her combination of skill, humility, and emotional intelligence. She had transformed perceptions, showing that quiet dedication and consistent effort could lead to extraordinary achievements. Her journey demonstrated that talent, when nurtured with discipline and love, could have a profound impact on both the performer and the audience. She continued to play not for recognition, but for the music itself. Each note, each chord, each phrase was an expression of her heart and mind. She understood that music was a universal language, capable of conveying emotions and connecting people in ways words often could not. Her journey was far from over, but she felt prepared for the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. By the end of this part, the young woman had reached a new level of confidence and mastery. She had faced pressure, expectation, and skepticism, and had emerged stronger, more skilled, and more self-assured. Her talent had been recognized, but more importantly, she had learned the value of dedication, humility, and emotional connection. The piano had become a companion, a tool for expression, and a bridge to others through the power of music. Looking forward, she knew that the future held many possibilities. New compositions, larger audiences, and further mentorship awaited her. She embraced these opportunities with readiness, grounded in the understanding that growth required patience, practice, and passion. Every performance, every note, and every practice session was a step toward uncovering her full potential and sharing her music with the world. In the quiet moments after each practice, she would sit back and reflect, letting the music linger in her mind. The journey that had begun with a simple challenge in school had grown into a life filled with purpose, growth, and artistic expression. She understood that her talent was both a gift and a responsibility, and she embraced it fully, knowing that the music she created had the power to inspire, connect, and transform. And so, she continued on her path, confident in her abilities, passionate about her music, and ready to face the challenges and opportunities that lay ahead. Her story was one of quiet perseverance, extraordinary talent, and the transformative power of dedication, and it was only just beginning to unfold.